I feel like we are more in the ego belief system than ever. Right now, people think we are becoming more enlightened than ever because we are obtaining higher levels of consciousness. But which consciousness can be used with the Holy Spirit as a walking stick instead of a crutch. But I think we've turned it into a crutch. That's the Holy Grail. Consciousness is the Holy Grail. So we're not seeing beyond consciousness. And we're not allowing the awakening consciousness provides of understanding the illusion better to then give us that gateway to the next step outside of the illusion. Welcome back to one's journey of unwinding the mind and, of course, your daily microdose. Now tune in to the latest episode of One's Journey. Today I want to talk about why is this way of thinking so hard? Why is it so hard to think from the Holy Spirit's belief system, especially, Ashley, if that's our innate state? We would think our innate state is something that would be super easy to do, but the problem is there is a lot of programming over the top. So we have been programmed to not understand and to believe we're this individual and that our individuality is our success, that without our individuality, we are no one. Therefore, it keeps us from even searching for that truth. And it also, when we start to flip the script per se and start to come from the Holy Spirit's belief system, it feels really uncomfortable because it's an acknowledgement. First of all, we have to take responsibility. We have to face a bunch of shame and guilt. And we also have to realize that we are not individuals and that none of this is true. And we put so much weight on, achieving successful things in our life and raising children and all those accolades that we're taught are necessary in this illusion. And then coming from the Holy Spirit's belief system, we see that it's such a bigger picture than that. And it's outside of that dream. So in fact, those things don't have the same meanings that they once did. And I'm not saying that having a successful business or a successful relationship or raising amazing children is not something to be proud of, but those are things within the illusion. So we're also taught to experience this with our five senses. We are taught from an early age, from the second we come out of the womb, that we only experience outside of ourselves and that nothing is within. I mean, we're even told by adults when we're small children that we don't know what we're talking about. You have nothing to be upset about. Again, reiterating that because there is not some sort of external representation, therefore it is invalid. So we're conditioned over and over again, beginning since birth until death, to constantly utilize our five senses and that those are the most important. And we've even added a consciousness or a sixth sense of obtaining a higher level of seeing the dream. So we're also taught as well to see from our analytical brain, to utilize our analytical brain, and that is rewarded and celebrated. The smarter you are, the more analytical you are within this illusion, which in fact is the left brain, right? It's not even that larger picture thinking, that emotional, attached to love type thinking, but instead it's very black or white. What we see is truth, right? What we can see and what we can prove through things we see is only truth, which in fact there is no, it's not something to be seen. Right? It is something to be felt, to be experienced internally. It's this deeper level of understanding and knowingness. We're also conditioned to self-serve. Think of a child. When a friend takes their toy and they take it back, that's not something I don't believe they're born with. I think that's something they learn along the way. And therefore, that is a direct representation of the constant self-serving mechanism that is being programmed within us, that if I don't have the toy, I must be lacking, so I must take it back from you, so therefore you are lacking. That mentality, there's another video on that as well that goes deeper into that. I take in order to receive, when in fact we give in order to receive because we are one. We also have this eye for an eye mentality when it comes to the conditioning of self-serve. It's like, especially karma. I think of karma. We talk about all the time when someone does something bad to us and we don't do anything bad back to them, well, karma will get them. That's that eye for an eye mentality that you will always be hurt if you are hurting others. And it's that externalization of a surface level understanding within this illusion that we are separate, when in fact it's a deeper level understanding that we are not separate, we are one. So by wishing that upon someone else who has harmed you, is you're really wishing it upon yourself. And your subconscious stores it that way, and it knows it that way, and the mind is receiving it that way. It goes, there's nothing concrete to look at. Again, we go back to that. There's nothing concrete to look at, and we are so taught that something must be concrete. And even in the gray areas of, psychology and other things like that, they still make really concrete parameters around the gray because we're so conditioned that something must have some sort of concrete structure. Therefore, it's not truth. It doesn't exist. People struggle to wrap their mind around ghosts or aliens or different things like that within the illusion. But over time, when we see these videos of aliens and people talk about alien abduction, then people are more open to, oh, maybe there is aliens. And that's, again, a fact that they're starting to build a concrete structure that supports that, oh, this, in fact, must be true because there is something outside of myself that says it's true. Whether it's another person, whether it's a video, whether it's anything else, it's beginning to change their narrative and give them concrete examples. So we're so used to that concreteness, and people don't just jump overnight to be believing that aliens exist if they didn't prior. It's this steady, continuously reintroducing different evidence to them that would make it true according to the illusion. Similar to the journey of untying the ego, right? It's not a light switch, and that's why it's difficult, because we are so trained that this is not something to be truth, and there isn't something concrete where we can go and, let's say, God is sitting somewhere and we can go talk to him and he can tell us all the things in the visual form, right? Through our outside senses. But within, in the internal sense, he is there. You can communicate with Jesus. You can communicate with the Holy Spirit. But again, they're not tangible beings sitting right in front of you. And even when Jesus was sitting right in front of everyone, they still didn't realize it till many, I don't even know how much longer after, in fact, what he was representing. And even then they screwed it up. But that's a story for a different day. So it also, of course, goes against the primary thought system that we operate from, because that's what this illusion was created, is the ego, right? We're only here because a piece of us is still coming from the ego belief system. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. We would remember that we're actually at home in heaven, and we wouldn't have to feel as though we're experiencing this, which we actually aren't. But that's, again, another story. And it goes back against our instincts, right? If our primary thought system is the ego, then our instinct at this point is the ego, because that's where we've been programmed. And I really think that's why children are just another piece of spirit coming back through that I've lived many lifetimes, but they forget a lot of the last lifetimes, and it builds back up. So I do still believe that children are the closest to spirit, other than if they were enlightened. So they're getting the remembrance back of, oh, this is how we operate in the illusion, this is what the illusion is, but there is this glimpse at the beginning where they can really be in touch with spirit, because they're pretty clear of the programming, or at least their remembrance of the programming, right? They've lived past lifetimes, so they've experienced it before, but their memory is wiped clean, their conscious memory. So it's stored in the subconscious, but the conscious is so clear that they have, I think, easier access to the mind of choosing the ego over the Holy Spirit, or the Holy Spirit over the ego, and they tend to go with the Holy Spirit. Think of a child as very curious, happy, can redo the same thing over and over again with the same amount of joy. But the problem is then the adults around them are pulling them back into the ego belief system, because that's their instinct, innate state to be in. And we see them as a us and them. We see a child as unknowing and us as all-knowing. We place ourselves in a place of God instead of an equal relationship, which there's a very beautiful article that David Hoffmeister wrote about how children and parents, it's more about finding that equality, and not that children should just run amok, but it's this deeper sense of equality. I would encourage you to check that out, and maybe I'll do a video about it as well. And so because it goes against most people's instincts, I think that's a big piece of why very few people are actually able to get to that stage of enlightenment or the stage that occurs immediately before enlightenment, and why it's going to take the next few hundred years before it becomes more mainstream, because there is so much deep and embedded programming that has to be slowly untied and forgiven at the level of the mind, generation after generation, lifetime after lifetime, and each lifetime you peel more layers of the onion off. And I feel like we are more in the ego belief system than ever. Right now, people think we are becoming more enlightened than ever because we are obtaining higher levels of consciousness. But which consciousness can be used with the Holy Spirit as a walking stick instead of a crutch. But I think we've turned it into a crutch. That's the Holy Grail. Consciousness is the Holy Grail. So we're not seeing beyond consciousness. And we're not allowing the awakening consciousness provides of understanding the illusion better to then give us that gateway to the next step outside of the illusion. Again, it's as simple as just flipping the script, but when your script has been so ingrained in you, it takes time and it takes dedication, and if you're struggling with it, you're not alone. This is part of the journey, and also remember, give yourself grace and forgiveness, because if you're not doing that, then we're not coming from the Holy Spirit's belief system. Again, the ego then is using your journey of untying the ego for the ego. So it kind of contradicts itself. The reason why this way of thinking is so hard, the bottom line is we have deep embedded programming, and essentially this illusion was created for the ego. So that is like our instinct to go to is the ego. But your true belief system that is actually innate to you is the Holy Spirit's belief system. So once you really start to unpack and give yourself forgiveness and grace, it will become easier, and it will actually end up feeling easier than it ever did to be coming from the ego's belief system. I hope you found this video important, helpful on your journey, maybe provided you some aha moments in areas you've been getting frustrated and now you're able to see and give yourself grace. But it's all a part of the journey, and that's why we have this community, to walk with one another, to share, to support, and to remind one another that's not about beating ourselves up. It's not about being perfect. It's about practicing the forgiveness along the way, because if you're not doing that, then what's the point? So share what are some areas that you have found are easier for you to come from the Holy Spirit belief system, or harder, or where are you at in that journey? I would love to hear. And as always, until next time, remember you are worth it. So much love. So grateful for you. Thank you.